Hello again. I hope that you have been waiting for this video. My name is Sofia Tsourlaki, and this video is the second video for the sequence or the group of videos about marital contract, the importance of marital contract. So in today's video, we will see the religious justification of a woman stipulating her marital contract, which was never questioned in the era of the Prophet. It was never questioned in the first 2 centuries after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And because I explained to you in the previous video, if you haven't watched the previous video, please watch it. It will help you understand what we will talk today. So as I explained in the previous video, the marital contract, the stipulations of the marital contract cannot force the husband to do or not do things. But what it does is it gives the woman the right to divorce the said husband if he breaks any of the stipulations. In other words, for example, in the example that I gave in the previous video, the example of this woman that when she got pregnant, the husband sent her to Pakistan. So this woman, being a Muslim woman, wanted to be a good Muslim wife, okay? There was no contract, marital contract, there was no stipulation. When the husband ordered her to go and live with his family in a different country, she had to obey. Because of the spiritual abuse of the idea that women are slaves and need to obey. But this is a different story. Anyway, the popular practice is this. The husband said it, she had to go. If she had a contract and she had a stipulation, she could say, no, I will not go. And if you insist making me do it, I will divorce you. And then she could be divorced, which means she didn't have to obey him. And she could stay in her country and give birth to her child with her parents. So the great benefit of the contract, other than setting your boundaries and making the husband understand that you are knowledgeable and making him understand what your expectations are, because let's not vilify the man. A man cannot imagine what you expect for your marriage. The most important thing is that it gives the woman the right to divorce. And now you will say, everyone say, oh yeah, a woman can take a khula. No, I'm not talking that. I'm talking about her right to pronounce her own divorce, not khula. Not the idea that, oh, I go to an alim or a qadi and the alim or the qadi will decide for me based on evidence and only if the qadi think that this is horrible. Because most of the times what happens is that, let's say, my husband, I have in my contract that, what? For example, personal hygiene is very important for me, okay? So he does something that disgusts me. I have the right to divorce him. But if you go to a qadi and say, I want to divorce him because he's disgusting to me, the qadi will dismiss you, the qadi will not support you. But if you have a contract and you have it in a stipulation, you don't even need the qadi. And this is something you need to understand, ladies. If you have a stipulation about divorce in your contract, which I suggest, you don't need to go to a qadi. You pronouncing divorce 3 times is a religiously acceptable divorce. And we will see it later on Imam Malik's book. Imam Malik said it clearly, that she needs to pronounce it thrice. If she said it only once, it's invalid. The same way that a man's talaq only once is invalid. She needs to say it 3 times and then she is religiously released. God has acknowledged that you are divorced. Based on that, we will see Quranic abstracts and hadith that and scholarly work that support this idea that I understand that for many of you is a new idea, because it might be the first time that you listen or you hear that a woman can divorce herself, not in a khula manner. And important element, in a khula manner, the woman needs to return, not needs, but anyway, we will see about that. We will see about the return of mahr about khula, because the popular idea is that, oh, if you go for a khula, you must return all your mahr and all your gifts. No, this is another lie. So let's see the religious justification. That's heavy. Let's start with the Qur'an. So, a marital contract is a contract and is valid. In Qur'an, the Qur'an 5:1 says, "O believers, honor your contract," which means your marital contract needs to be honored by both sides. Therefore, any stipulation that will be agreed on the contract cannot be revoked, and both parties are bound to honor the terms. Qur'an 4:12. If a woman fears bad behavior, nushuz, or neglect from her husband, it will not be any sin for them to peacefully agree to separate, for peace is better. So here, it is evident that God in Quran prioritizes the woman and bases the potential divorce on her fears, on her discretion. Because it doesn't say that if a man fears neglect from his wife. No, it says if a woman fears neglect. And here, be careful. We don't bad behavior or neglect, okay? So if the priority is on the woman, and then says, then it will not be a sin for them to peacefully agree to separate. For them, both of them. Not only the man has the right. No, of course not. Priority here is on the woman. Quran 4:35. If you fear a breakdown in marriage between them, send arbiters, one from his side and one from hers. And if they wish to reconcile, God will bring them together. Based on this, the Maliki school allows a woman to ask for a divorce if the marriage causes her any type of harm or if the marriage is breaking on a practical level. We continue with Quran 2:229. Divorce must be pronounced twice. After that, either you retain her on reasonable terms or release her with kindness. And it is not lawful for you, men, to take back from your wives any of your mahar, bridal money given by the husband. You know what is the mahar? Which you have given them, except when both parties fear that they would be unable to keep the limits ordained by Allah. Then if you fear that they will not be able to keep the limits, then there is no sin on either of them in what she ransoms concerning it. These are the limits ordained by Allah, and do not transgress them. And whoever transgresses the limits ordained by Allah, then such are the zalimun, the wrongdoers. To begin with, release her with kindness means that no husband can force a wife to continue the marriage. If the woman is unhappy, if the woman wants to divorce, the woman must be free to go. Scholars interpret the part that says what the ransom concerns it as repayment of part of or the entire mahar. Pay attention that returning part of the mahar is permissible, not obligatory. God didn't say that, oh, the woman has to return the money. It's like that if, no, there is another way. It's okay if she wants. And if she wants, it's on her discretion to give back some money. So even if you don't have a marital contract, but you watch the video and you decide to go for a khula, you don't have to return all the money. It's up to you. Because some men, they use that against women. They know that the women have spent all the mahar, they don't have the money to repay, so the woman cannot practically be freed. We will talk about mahar in the next video specifically, but keep that in mind. This is not correct. So yeah, about some popular websites state, Islamic websites state that the woman must return the mahar and any gifts for her freedom. This is not correct and contradicts the Quran. Also, the word khulla does not exist in the Quran, nor in any hadith. It was invented much later after the revelation of the Quran, by the jurists. Ahmad ibn Hanbal is the first to mention the term. So we see that until the era of Ibn Hanbal, there was no differentiation between, a divorce that a man pronounces, a divorce and a woman pronounces. This was invention of the jurists, that, oh yeah, the woman, if she wants, she needs to go through the jurists. Why did the jurists create more portfolio for the jurists? I guess. Anyway, I don't want to delay or to prolong the video. Let's go to a hadith. Narrated by Uqba. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, the stipulations in the marriage contract most entitled to be abided by are those with which you are given the rights to enjoy the women's private parts. And although it might sound a bit vulgar today to say that, what I want you to keep is that by that, the Prophet acknowledges the marital contract and acknowledges that the marital contract will have stipulations, many stipulations. And the most important of the stipulations are the stipulations that are discussing the sexual act. And this is an important thing. As a girl, as a woman, be very careful to have a section of the sexual intercourse and put your limits in what you want and what you don't want in this part of your life. So if you are someone that you really want intimacy, and it doesn't have to be intercourse per se, you understand what I mean. If you are someone that you need intimacy, you need hugs, you need flowers, put it in the stipulation that this is what I need and you must give it to me. And if you don't give it to me for more than 3 months, then I have the right to divorce you. Because what's the point of having a husband that does not fulfill your emotional needs? The Prophet himself mentioned it, that these are the most important stipulations. But beyond that, let's take our eye out of the tree and see the forest. The Prophet acknowledges the existence of marital contract with stipulations. So when the boy will come and tell you, oh, there is no such thing as a contract, no, there is. The Prophet said it, and it's sunnah. If you don't know, if he doesn't know, there is something questionable about, did he inherit his religion from his mama and his dada, or he learned his religion? Does he practice Islam according to sunnah, or he practices according to Dawah brothers? You think it's going to be your husband. We continue. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the wife of Thabit bin Qais came to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and said, O Allah's messenger, I do not blame Thabit for defects in his character or his religion, but I, being a Muslim, dislike to behave in a non-Islamic manner if I remain with him. What she meant here is that if I stay with him, I will beat him. If I stay with him, I will swear at him. And I'm not supposed to do that, because Muslim people are not supposed to do that. On that, Allah's messenger said to her, will you give back the garden which your husband has given you as mahar? She said, yes. Then the Prophet said to Thabit, O Thabit, accept your garden and divorce her once. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari. What I want you to keep for here, from this part, is that, because in today's world, if you want a khula, it needs to be something horrible, that he beat you, or that he did something horrible, okay? The males make it very difficult for a woman to get released. In this example here, we see that she simply didn't like her husband. She went to the Prophet and said, he has nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. I just dislike him and I want to divorce. And the Prophet divorced her, permitted her to divorce on her own account, like she doesn't want. Now, the second part, of course, the Prophet says to Thabit, divorce her. To be honest, says divorce her once, and here there's a big question why the Prophet permitted divorce by one pronouncement, whereas the ulama make us today have 3 pronouncements. But anyway, let's not stay here. The idea is that because she couldn't do anything. She didn't want him, and he was okay. He was a good husband. It's just that she disliked him. That's why the Prophet gave him back the garden. Which is why we will discuss later. It's very important that you don't use your mahar, because you might need, your life might depend on the mahar or returning the mahar. But in any case, what we have here, you don't have to blame, or the husband doesn't have to do something horrible for you to divorce him. If you don't like him, divorce him. Narrated by Aisha, Amra bint Jaun sought refuge with Allah from the messenger of Allah when she was brought to him as a bride. So what happened is that this girl, Amra, they brought her to the Prophet so that the Prophet will marry her, and she didn't want to marry the Prophet. So what did she do? She cried out to Allah, says, oh please God, protect me from the messenger of God, from the Prophet. The Prophet said, you have sought refuge with him in whom refuge is sought. So he divorced her and told Usama or Anas to give her a gift of 3 garments of white flax. So here, what do we see? We see a woman that she was married to the Prophet against her will. She didn't like it. Not only the Prophet respected her and released her, but also gave her gifts. And now come and tell me, I'm not quite sure to how popular is this ahadith, because many ahadith, there are ahadith that everyone knows, and there are ahadith that nobody knows. How many men today, if you go to a husband, and he was the Prophet, okay, he was the Prophet. How many men today, if you tell them, I don't like you, I don't want to be with you, would just release you and will give you gifts? The whole idea is that, no, you don't like me, you have to take me, I'm your husband, you need to obey me, you need to do whatever, you're my slave. That's where we ended, that's how we have ended up practicing our religion. But anyway, we see that even the Prophet himself, he would allow a woman to be divorced and will give her gifts as well. Let's go to the next one. This is the last supportive hadith. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Barira's husband was a slave called Mughith. As if I'm seeing him now, going behind Barira and weeping with his tears flowing down his beard. The Prophet said to Abbas, O Abbas, are you not astonished at the love of Mughith for Barira and the hatred of Barira for Mughith? The Prophet then said to Barira, why don't you return to him? She said, O Allah's Messenger, do you order me to do so? He said, no, I only intercede for him. She said, I'm not in need of him. And guess what? The Prophet permitted this and Barira divorced the husband. So here we have an example of a man that adores the wife. She wants to divorce him. He runs behind her and cries. And then they meet the Prophet. They come in front of the Prophet. She just said, I'm not in need of him. She didn't say he was a bad husband, he beat me, he did something inappropriate, he did something un-Islamic. I am not in need of him. And that's it. She's a free woman. So this religious evidence shows that a woman is to be freed, even if she just doesn't like the husband. It doesn't have to be something majestic. Now, of course, you will tell me, oh, but we know a hadith that they say that the woman does not have the right. Yeah, let me talk about this hadith, and I bet you everyone will know this hadith. Why? Because it serves the system. So, the first one, the woman who asks her husband to divorce her where there is no harm done, the smell of paradise is forbidden for her. Musnad Ahmad Baqi, Musnad Al-Ansar, number 21,404. And we find it also in Sunan Ibn Majah, Book of Divorce. And anyway, a series of books. You can find it in many books. This is a Hasan hadith. Okay, it's not a strong hadith. Importance on what do we consider to be harm. Stipulate in your contract what you consider to be harm. Because harm is not only for him to physically assault you. Harm can be for him to offend you in front of people, or to offend you in general. Harm, it is mental harm. It is not physical. You cannot see the bruises, but it is a harm if he will tell you that, oh, I made a mistake that I married you, or oh, your food always tastes like a crap. This is abuse. This is harm. So put it in your stipulations. Now, other than the fact that this is a weak hadith and we shouldn't have it at all, it goes against the hadith that I already told you. So how was that the Prophet himself, he released women from marriages on zero grounds? Like, I don't like seeing him, I don't have a need of him. And then you come and you tell us that, oh, the woman that asked her husband for divorce, the smell of, where there is no harm, the smell of paradise will be forbidden for her. How? When? The Prophet did it. Who are you to come and... I don't even know who narrated this hadith. Another hadith. To the women who make khul are hypocrites. Really? Really? How about the Prophet that permitted it? How about the Prophet that validated it? Oh? And this also exists in 1, 2, 3 different books. And not only it contradicts the other hadith that we have, but it has a weak transmission chain. But is being employed by ulama and by, when you go to ask for a khula, the scholar will tell you first these two hadith, that are you sure the paradise will be close to you? If you know, you will say, excuse me, but how about this hadith? Majority of women don't know. That's why it's important that you learn. Both hadith, the weak hadith, have been used regardless their weak state, solely in regards to their content in aim to oppress women. Don't accept it. If your boy or your future husband comes and tells you this hadith, you know what you have to do. I mean, he might not know. Teach him. If he refuses to be taught, dismiss him. Find someone else. Let's go now to the madahib, the schools of law. So we saw the Qur'an, we saw the hadith, the good hadith and the bad hadith, and now we go to see the mortals, the scholars. Now, for the first 2 or 3 centuries, I have to admit that the scholars, the first scholars, they were much closer to the Islamic principles and they were not evil against women. It's from the 3rd century onwards that they started losing the plot. So a surprise here is that the one madhab that is most supportive towards the idea that women should stipulate their marital contract and all the stipulations is the Hanbali school. And I say that in that tone because the Hanbalis are the strict ones, okay? The ones that they are very strict. Surprisingly, they are very supportive. The Hanbalite Ibn Qudama, that he lived in he was born 1147 and died 1223 Common Era, says that conditions that confer some kind of benefit on the woman are allowed. The examples he gives are that the woman stay in her own house or country, that she does not have to travel with the man, and that he will not marry anyone else or take a concubine. Now here, I want you to keep notes, because Ibn Qudama, a Hanbalite, says that yes, you can put a stipulation says that he will not take you out of your country or send you out of your country. You can put a stipulation that you will not travel with him whenever he travels, and that he will not take another wife. And here the boys will cry and say, oh, that goes against the Quran. No, it doesn't. Because the Quran says that you have the right under conditions. But the will of your first wife is more important than your will. It's not obligation. The Quran does not make it obligation that you get 2 or 3, 4, 5, 4 wives. It makes it permissible under conditions. Your wife's approval is one of the conditions. These types of conditions, Ibn Qudama insists, must be honored by the husband, and quote his words, Qudama's words, if he does not honor, she can get a divorce from a judge. So if you have these stipulations and you go to a qadi or you go to the Sharia council and say, okay, I have the stipulation that I will not travel with him, and now he wants to take him with him, or that he will not get married another wife, and now I discover that he's in discussions to get married. The scholar cannot say, oh no, this goes against the Quran. He must honor your contract. End of the discussion. These types of conditions, if Ibn Qudama, they are binding, says Ibn Qudama, because they do not interfere with the basic requirements of marriage, just as if a woman asked for a larger dower. Nor do they violate the law by arbitrarily forbidding what it allows. The man is still free to do all that the law allows. It is only that the woman may from her side dissolve the marriage if he does certain things. So in other words, the idea of second wife. The wife doesn't tell you, don't ever do it. But if you want to do it, you will have to pay the price. The price is that you will lose me. And this is in the book Mughni, volume 7, page 448. Similarly, the Hanbali, another Hanbali, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, that he was born in 1935, he's still alive until recently, said that if the wife stipulates that he should not separate her from her children or parents, this condition is valid, and if he breaks it, she has the right to annul the marriage. If she stipulates that her mahar should be increased or that it should be in a specific currency, the condition is valid and binding, and he has to fulfill it, and she has the right to annulment if it is broken. In that case, she has the choice and may decide any time she wants and may annul it whenever she wants, so long as there is nothing on her part to indicate that she accepts it if she knows that he has gone against that was stipulated. Let's go to another. The Hanbali Ibn Qayyim, he lived between 1292 and 1350 Common Era. He said, "It is obligatory to fulfill these conditions, which are the most deserving of being fulfilled. This is what was implied by Sharia, reason, and sound analogy. If the woman did not agree to become a man's wife except on these conditions, and if it were not obligatory to fulfill them, then the marriage contract would not be based on mutual agreement, and it would be making something obligatory upon her that Allah and His Messenger have not made obligatory." This you can find it in the book Al-Mulakhas Al-Fiqhi, 345 and 346. Now, the other schools, Hanafites, Shafi'ites, Malikites, and Shiites, are traditionally reluctant to allow additional stipulations apart from these which are already in accord with the contract, such as the amount of mahar and the schedule of the mahar payment. These four schools do, however, agree with the Hanbalites that conditions that affect the wife's rights, such as limitations on support, non-payment of mahar, or limitations in inheritance, are automatically void with the contract remaining valid. See, for example, Shafi number 5, pages 79-80, or Hilil Tahrir, the second volume, page 34. The Maliki school, also based on the Qur'an 4:35, allows a woman to ask for a divorce if the marriage causes her any type of harm or if the marriage is breaking on a practical level. So, this is where I will stop with the general support on the contract and whether it is valid or invalid and the stipulations. This is all you need to know about the religious justification. I will finish the video here and we will continue the next one. First, we will see specifically the stipulations about polygyny and the right of the woman to divorce her husband. Then I will talk to you about some popular books that they are circulated about marital contracts and you shouldn't read, and then we will go into seeing more about the actual marital contract, how exactly, what types of stipulations to put, what's the importance of each stipulation, etc. That is all for now. Subscribe to the channel to watch the next video because it will be more practical for you. It will help you shape your contract. And I will see you, or you will see me, in the next video. Until then,